I am sitting in a car which I built because this week our theme is vehicles. So yes, I am sitting in a car, and if I turn around slowly, you can see a bunch of other vehicles behind me. Oh, I really should keep my eyes on the road, shouldn't I? I should be paying attention to where I'm going, where I'm driving. Yeah, let's not talk about that. Let's instead talk about all the things that I built this week. So I know absolutely nothing about cars, so I literally just googled classic car and decided to build something. Now I wish I could tell you what it was, but the photo didn't actually say its name. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about how I built this car. So for this week I wanted to focus on tons and tons of little details. So you can see I'm using a lot of shelves and trapdoors and textures. Now one of the reasons I opted for mangrove, other than the awesome colour, is the fact that the trapdoors have a hole through, which when placed in front of a light source give almost the effect of a headlight, which worked really well in this scenario. Another thing that I did was focus a lot on banners and shelves, and how by interlocking them or placing them one on top of each other you can get this effect. I think worked really well. And of course I just tried to get like little tiny details. So with the windshield wipers, the antenna, I used like iron bars and stacked it up, trying to get the shapes right and the texture right. I put a lot more effort into the front than I did the back, and that's mainly because of time. But again, with the back I tried to get like little details like the grille, so shelves with iron bars in it, and then the license plate, so again shelves with white banners in it, and all those tiny little details that really sell the effect that this is indeed a car. And I think particularly from this angle it really worked. I'm really happy with the shape and the little details, because the car that I was referencing was actually quite boxy, and that's another reason why I chose it. So for this build I was doing a train, and I messed around a little bit trying to get the structural, like the base down with the wheels and then that front bit. And I decided in my wisdom that I was actually going to ensure that I had a one block center. So I did that. Then I built like the tubey barrel-y bit at the front and went around with some details, a gold block in the middle, and then I used mangrove specifically because of that circle cut out in the trapdoor. Then I went through and added a couple little details. I was kind of just getting blocks and then putting them down and hoping that they kind of fit the vibe. It was a lot of back and forth trying to figure out how different blocks could replicate different elements of the train. So you'll see I've got a lot of slabs, a lot of trapdoors, a lot of shelves. The central like chimney steamy bit was really fun to do. Put a campfire in there and it looks really cool. And then when I was building like the front room and then the carriage at the back, I was focusing a lot on like smaller details and how the overall shape of it would look from the outside. So for here you can see I extended it out a bit and then used shelves to create a bit more of like a ribbing, I guess, for the top and the bottom. And you'll see in a bit I go through and replace the fences with signs because it sits flatter and just looks visually more appealing. It does look like a smiley face though, or like a blank face actually. I'm just realizing that now. But yeah, this was a lot of fun and I love doing all the tiny details. So I decided that my last two builds had been kind of red, so I wanted to use a different color. So I decided yellow. And in my wisdom, the only yellow block that includes things like trapdoors and shelves is bamboo. Now it's not necessarily a bad color, but it's like not the best yellow either. But anyway, that's beside the point. I started going through and doing a bunch of little details and just trying to get the shape right. I was really focusing on like the front part. Like most of these vehicle builds, the front is like the best angle and the best bits, because that's kind of like the moneymaker, the face. So what I did was I went through and just tried to add as much detail with the shaping. It was a lot of going back and forth with slabs and trapdoors just to get like the shape right, to be smooth, not too harsh. And you can see particularly back here when I do the end bit that I actually go and redo what I had originally because it was too harsh of an angle. And these older planes are like a nice, smooth, clean, consistent flow. But yeah, in the front it was a lot of detailing with, again, shelves, And then for the propellers, I used spruce fences and birch trap doors, and I think that added quite a cool little effect. And then of course on the back here, you can see me adding a few details with banners. I love banners as a detail. They add such a cool effect, especially with the fact that they have a little bit of motion in it as well. And that can just really help a build feel so alive. Even in this case, it being a static object, it still adds a bit of color. So like I mentioned in my short form version of this video, I based this off a boat that I have built on a server. So I used a very similar color palette using the waxed oxidized copper as well as some warp to mix it in to give it some texture. But the first thing I did was go through and try and get the shape right and then do little details at the same time. So you can see I've gone through and done the front, added like a lantern and some tripwire hooks, then gone through and tried to work out the shape a little bit. So going through with a bit of with a couple of trapdoors, and you'll see later I add some warped signs just to add to that as well. Then I go through with some spruce just to give it a bit of like a border, a bit of finish, a bit of polish. Go through with quartz and build a little cabinet thing. You know, you see a jump in the time lapse, that's because I pressed pause on a oh, that was a loud clap of thunder. I pressed pause on the replay to talk to someone and forgot to unpause it. But yes, I used scaffolding for the windows and quartz just to contrast the white. You can see me here adding a couple more details with the signs like I mentioned, going through and adding like a little barrier thing on the back, adding a couple of details and shadows, and then I thought that the orange copper trapdoor kind of looked like, you know, one of those life rings, so I added that too. Added a little bit of glass just to add a bit of texture as if it was on the water. And yeah, this was the final build. I was quite happy with it. So like most of the builds, I started out laying out the base and then used the, I think it's polished basalt as the wheels. Now I like this block as wheels because it does have like a ringed texture. And then I went through and filled it out. Now I built this bus based off the orange PTV buses that I used to ride when I used to live in Melbourne. So I had to use acacia. Now I don't get to use acacia a lot, so I was really happy getting to use that. Then on the front, you can see me adding a ton of details with the signs, the shelves, and even some iron bars just to make a sort of grill. Went through with the copper. Copper goes so well with the acacia, the same oranges, so I could get the doors in, and then added a line of quartz along the bottom and filled in the glass using glass panes. And then to separate that, I decided to use acacia trapdoors, filled in the roof, and added a little top venti thing. I'm not really sure what those are for, but all buses seem to have them. Then around the back, I added a couple more details and lined them with signs. Now this just adds a bit more definition and texture and just a bit more visual interest. Then you can see me kind of going through and doing some interior work, adding in some chairs, some poles, and some buttons that you push to tell the bus driver, hey, I need to get off at the next stop. This is definitely something I have built before and have quite a bit of practice in, so it didn't take me nearly as long as it normally does, but I'm still quite happy with how it turned out, getting to build it with the shelves this time. So I forgot to press record on my replay, so I'm gonna have to speed run what I did. So I did a lot of detailing, shelf at the front, and then used a combination of glass blocks and panes to create the lights and the windshield. To make the tires, I used deep slate and then used redstone to power the trap doors so that they're closed, and then used some pale oak because it's a similar color to the iron trap door, just to add some texture. And then I went through and just tried to get the shape right. It was a lot of back and forth looking at an image and then doing a little bit of shaping, placing, and yeah, it was quite simple. Once I did one side, I just copied it over to the other side. I went through and added a couple of details with shelves, signs, and cherry fence gates, and then I worked on like the motory exhaust pipe bits. And the under here, I was basically just adding some cool textured deep slate. Various aspects of the same block can really help add texture and definition to your piece, like you can see here. And yeah, I think it turned out quite cute. Yeah, I'd honestly love to learn to ride one of these. So I started this build thinking it would be a lot bigger than it was. So you can see I placed the wheel over on the very far side. But I started with the wheels because it's a very good central point, and it's near the base. It kind of dictates the scale and all of that afterwards. So I just went through and did the two wheels, and then tried to connect them with the middle section. Then I kind of struggled figuring out what I wanted to do next, and I decided to work on the bucket. You can see I initially made it too tall and was like, I'm not vibing with this. Then I filled it with dirt, added some spruce planks for a bit of texture of the dirt, and then sealed it off, added the arm bits of the bucket as well. And then again, I was kind of like, okay, I need to figure out how to detail this, how to make it look okay, because it is quite a boxy structure. So in the end, I was like, okay, I'm just going to build it how it is. I'm going to make it low-key kind of boxy. I went through and did the top bit and then added a little bit of details. Now, I love using iron bars for these like antennae. I think it just adds such a cool effect, and it really sells the idea of antenna. Again, going through filling out the back as the big chunk of metal that it is. I don't know how to describe it. I tried to add a bit of texture on the back bit, but it is quite a blocky thing. They are big, heavy pieces of metal designed for digging and moving earth. There's not much more I can say about this, but it was a very challenging week, a lot of fun, and I'll see you next week.